Okay, we get a lot of these comments challenging. I don't really care. Christians believe whatever you want to believe. I don't really care. This is really for Jews who are confused and start believing the New Testament stuff. Now, I'm not a New Testament scholar, nor do I ever claim to be, and I don't think I ever will be. However, you got three problems with these verses. Number one, you have the Nicene problem. Number two, you have a context problem of reading these verses. And number three, you also have a Matthew problem. The problem you have with the Council of Nicaea is that they decided between the Roman and the Greek Orthodox to create a God that is palpable to everyone so that they could spread the word to all the pagans. The problem is the pagans had really cool gods. They had gods that like to play with humans, they had gods that control the different parts of the world. The Greek Orthodox in the East and the Roman Orthodox in Europe, they had a big problem and they had to go spread their gospel, their religion to the masses. How are they going to do that? They're creating the perfect God, and therefore that's when it came up with all of a sudden that not only was Jesus the Messiah, which is the anointed king, but he also was God himself. Problem number two is all your quotes are from John. So therefore you're relying on one single book, and therefore is it corroborated in any other book, or does one book happen to say it when the other three actually main gospels do not say it? So let's go through these in order as they are actually found in John. So first of all, you have John 4:26. I who speak to you am he. He's not saying he as in he's God. He's saying he as in the Messiah. I am the anointed Messiah. The woman at the well is talking to him and saying, I want to find the anointed one, the king of Israel, the Messiah. And he's saying, I am he. Next, we have John 8:58. So he says, truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was I. So what was he saying? He was saying that, so the Jews said to him, you are not 50 years old. How could you possibly know who Abraham was? So he responded to him saying, truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was I am. Now, before you start saying I am he, or I am God, you have to understand the Hebrew word that it probably got taken out of. And I know this was not ever written in Hebrew, this is probably only written in Greek. But if Jesus talked, he was probably talking in Hebrew or Aramaic. Either way, if you're using the biblical verse is Anoichi. Anoichi is I am. Most of the time, it's referring to Anoichi is not saying I, that would be Ani. Anoichi usually refers to God. So you could say Anoichi is God. So what he's saying is very possible. Again, we don't have this in Hebrew, but I could say that if he was talking in a biblical type of tone, so truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was Anoichi. Before Abraham was Anoichi meaning God. So Jesus was answering them, you know how I know all about Abraham? Because I know Anoichi. If I know Anoichi, if I know God, therefore I know all going back to Abraham. Next one, John 10:30. I and the Father are one. Let's look at the verse before. My Father, who has given to me, is greater than all, and no one is able to snatch them out of my Father's hand. I and the Father are one. Again, I and the Father are one. We are one mindset. The verse before says the Father is something different. Clearly, he's talking about the Father is someone different because the Father has given to me. How could you give to yourself? You can't. The Father gave to me. In other words, someone separate, something separate gave to me, and we are one. We are of one mindset. And then the last one you talked about, John 16:15. So it says, the full quote, all that is the Father is mine, therefore I said that he will take what is mine and declare it to you. Let's look at it in context. Number 13, when the Spirit comes to truth, he will guide you and know the truth, and he will not speak on his own. Again, 14, he will glorify me, for he will take what is mine and declare to you. Finally, 15, all that the Father has is mine. Therefore I say that he will take what is mine and declare to you. In other words, all the Father has is mine, meaning everything that I have really is from the Father. Reversing that, the verses before clearly talk about a Father as a separate entity. So again, he's just trying to say that God and him are of the same mindset, the same goal, have the same concepts to go forward. Nothing here says that he is God himself. And then, of course, finally, you have the Matthew problem. And the Matthew problem is that Matthew clearly says all over the place that he's only the anointed king. He is not actually God. God is something very, very separate. That's exactly how Matthew reads in the original Hebrew. So therefore, you have problem number one. The whole concept of Jesus being God was only invented by Nicaea. Number two, you have the context of your verse yourself. And number three is you have a Matthew problem because Matthew is one of the Gospels, and Matthew clearly indicates that God and Jesus are separate. Anyway, let's go back to the original Testament. I would like to talk about that a lot more.